just 2 weeks away from our little boy's very first birthday party, I was standing in the lounge room and he was crawling around beneath my feet. My husband was in the kitchen in front of me. We were yelling and screaming at each other, and unfortunately there was nothing unusual about that. But there was something unusual that occurred. I remembered distinctly 2 things that happened to me that day. First thing that happened was this cold fear of dread that came up through my feet and into my legs, into my belly, and then jumped up into my throat when I saw the knife that he was waving around. The second thing I remember is the decision I made on that day, the decision that enough was enough. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I was no longer going to feel powerless in this life. I was no longer going to be feeling alone and unworthy and unloved and, well, just completely powerless. Enough was enough. I was done with that. My very first memory as a child was of being around 7 months old, maybe 8 months old. Mum and Dad picked up my brother and sister, put them in the car, waved goodbye to my aunt and uncle, got in the car and drove away, leaving me, a little baby, in a dark, unfamiliar bedroom in a dark, unfamiliar house. Now, that was a fleeting experience. They came back for me as soon as they realised what they'd done. And it's a family joke these days. That experience was fleeting, but it left a lasting impression on me, and it also went on to inform my life for many years to come. Nobody actually ever told me that I was unloved or powerless or had no power in this world, or that I was unworthy or not good or any of those sorts of things. I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood, but what I do remember is that we were always happy. It was a happy childhood. It was a fun childhood. I had 5 brothers and sisters, and we lived in a foreign country. We had a father who was extroverted and loud, and he was a big person. He trained as a professional boxer. So I do remember times under the house learning how to take care of ourselves. So as I stood in that house, with my little baby crawling around beneath my feet, tugging at my skirt, memories of my childhood and of my life prior to this moment started pummeling at me. They were like punches coming from the universe. Look at this part of your life. And it was memories of moments of feeling powerless, of feeling not good enough, of being laughed at by all my high school friends because I was quiet and so shy and so introverted. Moments of deciding that I was done with high school and walking out the gates of my Catholic girls' boarding school and into a chef apprenticeship. And my father didn't speak to me for 2 whole weeks, not one word for 2 weeks, in a house that we shared with Mum and my 5 brothers and sisters. I remember when he died and my husband had something more important to do on the day that we said our goodbyes. He had something else to do rather than be there to hold me when we said goodbye. And another punch to the gut. I remember the day I walked out of the hospital after yet another miscarriage, only to find out that he wasn't there to pick me up because he had something else to do. All of these things were just punching, hitting me in this moment, in this house, with my on my feet. And I thought I was going to hit the floor, hit the boards with a bloody nose, while the ref counted down to 10 and declared a knockout. And in that moment of deciding that enough was enough, I made another decision. I decided that I was going to find my power. I knew that there had to be something more to life than what I was living. There just had to be, didn't there? There had to be. So I went searching. friend, and he always seemed really happy. So I said to him, how do you do it? How do you always stay happy? Now, I've seen your life. I know that there are times when things aren't going right. I know that sometimes there's sadness and these sorts of things, but you always seem happy and you've always got a smile for everybody. How do you do it? And he said to me, he said, Anne, you can actually choose to be happy. I laughed at that and I said, that's absolute rubbish. It's not true. Happiness chooses you if you're one of the lucky few. But then I stopped and I thought for a moment, if he was happy and he thought that he got to choose happiness, then who was I to not try and find out if that was true? So I decided to see if it was true, and I went and researched and I found out everything I could about happiness and how to be happy. I had another friend, and she always seemed to be guided by some mysterious force that allowed her to always have whatever she wanted. She lived a life that I could only dream of. So I said to her, how do you do it? How come you always get what you want? Every single time you get what you want. And she just said one word to me. She said, meditate. At this point I knew that if I wanted to be more, I had to do more. So I meditated. And as I meditated, I started to get this tiny little inkling of a thought that perhaps I did have some power within me. I devoured personal development books. I affirmed and I intended everything that I wanted in my life. I learned to appreciate what I had so that I could gather more of those things to appreciate. And I trained my brain, and then I rested. I felt that I was escaping this sense of powerlessness. As I rested, I started to hear a voice. It was a teeny tiny little voice to start with, but it was a powerful voice. It reverberated through every cell in my body. And this voice came from my heart, and it came from my soul. And this voice said, you are powerful. You know, when I was 8, I remember distinctly playing in the backyard with my brothers and sisters and some kids from the neighbourhood as well. We were playing cowboys and Indians. This was before the days of political correctness. The boys were all dressed up with their guns at their hips, and they were shooting us Indian girls with our feathers and our bows and arrows. And there was lots of laughter. It was a lot of fun. And as a pretend bullet hit me in the heart from a pretend gun, from a pretend cowboy, I threw myself back and landed in the grass. And as I did so, I looked up to the sky and the clouds parted, and I saw my future. Now that power that I had given a voice to, I'd found it and given a voice to it, I absolutely know that within you is a voice that is waiting to come out, a voice that's waiting to be heard, a voice of your power. My vision is to give a voice to the power within you. My vision is to heal you from physical, spiritual, and emotional dis-ease, to connect you to your inner power, to empower you to find it and to voice that power so that you can transform your life.